The independent panel tasked with deciding what journalistic organizations qualify for bailout money is stacked with 60% anti-conservative liberal cheerleaders. It's as independent as those formerly liberal, now totally independent senators who seem to always vote with the liberal government. A 5-person panel was selected by the Department of Canadian Heritage to vet journalistic applications for some of that $595 million in federal subsidies. It's called the Independent Advisory Board on Eligibility for Journalism Tax Measures. It's a mouthful. Now here's the press release from back in March when the so-called independent panel was first announced. As recommended by the Journalism and Written Media Independent Panel, another Liberal independent panel. In its recommendations to the government in July 2019, the government appointed an independent advisory board. The independent advisory board's role is as a special advisor to the Minister of National Revenue or the CRA officials delegated by the minister. The independent advisory board will provide recommendations to the minister on whether an organization meets the criteria for QCJO. That's the qualifying designation related to original news content and journalistic processes and principles. The board is composed of current and retired faculty members from post-secondary journalism schools across Canada. The members are Dr. Colette Bryn, the chair, Ms. Kim Kierans, the co-chair, as well as Ms. Margot Goodhand, Mr. Pierre Paul Noro, and Dr. Kareem H. Kareem. Members were selected based on the linguistic, cultural, and ethnic diversity of the country. Oh, friends, that isn't altogether true, that selection process. I'm sure that diversity as a strength, according to the Liberals, played a huge role in the selection process. You got to tick off those identity boxes since 2015, right? But at least 2 or 3 of the 5 are raging Liberals, and the other 2, I suspect, are going to go along to get along. So I guess homogeneity of gender and religion, not good. But diversity of thought, that's fine. And I was tipped off to the problem by the good work of Blacklock's reporter who ran this story today behind their paywall. Look at this. 2 cabinet advisors hired to vet press applications for millions in federal subsidies made anti-opposition remarks and publicly ridiculed editorial standards at a newspaper that endorsed conservatives in past elections. One appointee, Professor Kareem of Ottawa, in a Twitter comment said Stephen Harper played the politics of hate. And then Blacklock's linked to a screenshot of the tweet sent by Kareem. Just look at this. Stephen Harper plays the politics of hate against Muslims via, of course, the Toronto Star. So I dug a little deeper. You know, that's how I got into this job in the first place. These are my roots, mining social media, belonging to lefties in politics that the media just won't do. Kareem seems to be sort of okay with blasphemy laws for journalists. Just look at this retweet. This is big. European Court of Human Rights rules that defaming the Prophet Muhammad goes beyond the permissible limits of an objective debate and could stir up prejudice and thus exceeds permissible limits of freedom of expression. And Kareem doesn't think that Islam should be at all linked with anti-Semitism. Look at this. Anti-Semitism, like all racism, must be challenged, but what lapse in judgment leads to a conference titled Islam and Anti-Semitism? And that other board member, Margot Goodhand, well, Blacklock's found an article from 2013 that Goodhand penned in the Winnipeg Free Press where she made the case for Trudeau, saying, "We need Justin Trudeau to silence bullies." And for her, the bullies are conservatives. She needs Trudeau to silence them. And now she's in a position where she can do just that, at least in the media, by using the carrot of government subsidies and then the stick of Trudeau's promised social media censorship and crackdown on Facebook. And like any good Trudeau appointee, Margot Goodhand seems to hate Trump. She also sent a tweet criticizing Trump for accusing Twitter of stifling free speech, which Twitter absolutely does to conservatives all the time. Goodhand is also cheering for Stormy Daniels, the disgraced porn star, but I think I'm repeating myself when I say that, who once sued President Trump. Daniels is a former client of disgraced lawyer Michael Avenatti. I hate double standards, so I think it's probably okay for people to make fun of Margot's genitals on Twitter based on Margot's tweets about Trump's genitals. And Goodhand thinks it's perfectly fine for Justin Trudeau in 2014 to block Sun News Network because my boss said some unkind, however completely true things about Justin Trudeau's mother. But let's keep digging on these people. Another panel member, Colette Bryn, seems really concerned about CNN's Jim Acosta because Trump is kind of mean to Jim. She tweets this: Trump's words to Jim Acosta are unworthy of the head of a democratic state, but what is even more worrying is the support he receives when he disparages the work of journalists. You see, she doesn't seem to understand why people hate the media. Now, I went through Bryn's Twitter account and I can't see where she expressed any sentiment, for the good or the bad, about Justin Trudeau's repeated banning of Canadian conservative journalists from debates and now press conferences. To support our legal battle to get access to those press conferences, please go to letusreport.com. And for good measure, Bryn tries to blame the rise of internet misinformation on Brexit and the election of Donald Trump. This is like a mini We Charity scandal, don't you think? There, the Liberal donating We Charity was hand-selected by the Liberal government to dish out nearly $1 billion in subsidies to students. Well, this is over $500 million in subsidies to journalists, and the people in charge are obvious Liberals. They're fine with silencing the critics of Justin Trudeau and selling out their journalistic principles for the low price of $450 per day plus expenses. That's what they're getting paid. But the mainstream media won't care about any of this because they stand to benefit from this scandal. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. You can't trust the mainstream media any more than you can trust CBC. At this point, they're all subsidized by the federal government, but not us. And that's why Justin Trudeau continues to block our attempts to attend his daily press conferences. To help us fight back and to see the full story, please go to letusreport.com.